It really is some bullshit. If Vaporeon's not in the top like 20, then it's a bad poll, and it's
Espeon and
also
Umbreon are
wrong.
both there.
But how is
Actually,
Vaporeon not? Is Jolteon in there?
not that I saw. Let me scroll up this
That's a
thing.
fake ass poll.
Elite Four, more like Elite Full
Elite
Restore.
full restore.
That's us. My name's Matt,
My name is Ori.
and we're here to talk to you guys about Pokemon a whole bunch.
Probably more than you need to talk about it, honestly. But here we are.
Yeah, well, we'll try not to keep it too long, but I mean, this is a pilot episode, so it's invariably gonna happen.
Yeah, that's just even in pilot like TV shows and stuff. I feel like the you have to get the worst out of the way before you can get to anything
Let's.
good. So I think
Are we
I
gonna
think
be
we're on
like
the
a
right track.
Are we gonna be like a Twin Peaks pilot or a Fringe pilot where we're a full hour and a half in length?
I'm thinking it's
Completely.
gonna be more like one of those really bad sitcoms where one of us is completely removed from the second episode and then we don't mention it at all for the rest of the series.
Yeah, yeah, just completely disappears.
Yeah, that's right. So it's going to
So
be either you or me talking to a wall for an hour for literally the entire lifespan of this thing from now on.
okay, we'll see which one of us it ends up being when we get to it. Um, we have kind of a loose structure of the kind of things we want to discuss on this, and then we'll take feedback to see where people want us to go with it.
Loose is the operative word for sure. And if you guys want to hear more about a certain subject, or you want me to shut up about competitive, or you want Matt to shut up about Pokemon, I mean Fakemon, then that's totally fine. We
Man, I
will
don't
not
even
mince
have
it.
I don't even have Fakemon on our document this week. I decided to cut it back a little bit because I figured I would talk about it anyway.
I mean, we
So
can
like I
have
don't.
like an entire episode where we just talk Fakemon. I'm totally cool with that.
Well, yeah,
I
because
like making
another
shit up as much as the neck girl.
another thing is I wanted to we wanted to bring people in to interview, and we definitely could get some Fakemon creators in on the show.
Are those people? Is that a job? I think that's a career. I'm sure. Like if
Although I
it's
mean,
not,
like
it should.
artists that happen to create Fakemon all the time. I know many.
That's magical. I love that. I love that. I love this community. It's so great.
So we're going to be
All
starting
right.
off with Sun and Moon news.
It's not really news. It's more like just us gushing over the new stuff that's been announced already. But yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Let's go.
there was one this morning, so that's like serendipitous that we're recording today, and there's new news to discuss.
It's funny because during the original one of this, we didn't have this information, and now it's like our entire like old file got wiped, and it's got to be Destiny, honestly.
Yeah, like
Copyright
that
Bungie. I do
was
not own that game.
my horrible recording issues were entirely to have it so we can discuss the Zygarde forms again.
Do we have to like the Zygarde forms that don't exist? I really I
Well, I
hate
mean, they
that
do
blob.
exist now. They're going to be in Sun and Moon. That was one of the reveals today.
Well, if the data, why isn't the data in the game that it's actually in? Then is this going to be like the Shaman evolution that was like hinted at during Diamond and Pearl, and then like didn't even exist until the next?
Oh, like it didn't actually show up till Platinum, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit like that, except like it's going to be a whole generation break.
That's so strange to me. I see it now, and I'm not digging the dog, but I am digging this Defense Deoxys ripoff because it
Oh
can't be
man,
two
K.
designs further away from each other.
Someone did some math based on the stats you can see. So you can see its HP stat, and it's somewhere in the 200s at level 50.
Wait,
So
250 for what stat? What?
like its HP is at like 250 at level 50. So they extrapolated, and its base HP stat is between 180 and like 145, or sorry, 245. So it
Whoa,
has
that
like
would
a
put.
stupid amount of HP.
Yeah, that's wow. I would love to see the rest of that actually. That's interesting.
Yeah,
What's
so
Blissy's base right now? Is it 255,
base is
something like that?
255. Yeah, it's straight up. It's the highest it can go.
Jesus.
Chansey's at
That's
250,
interesting.
so it would be right below them two.
Interesting. Yeah, that's it's weird because you don't normally associate even with the legendaries that are really chunky like that, like you don't have a stat that's like really that exorbitantly high. Like even stuff like I would say Palkia or even like Arceus aren't really that ridiculous in one stat or the other. That's
You
interesting.
rarely break 150 unless you're like a really lopsided mega.
Or something like one of the Deoxys forms where you're like they're just blatantly supposed to be good in one stat and then deficient in another.
Yeah, and those are 180, and that's its minimum. That's the minimum of its HP stat.
That's wild. That's really wild actually.
But yeah,
Core
they
Enforcer, I love.
it looked like they were actually planning to put these forms in X and Y because the two moves that you see in the promo video, Thousand Arrows and Thousand Waves, are both available in the code for the game. So like there was some
As
planning
in
there. X and Y.
interesting. So as in like oh like an X and Y like as available to be like edited for a future patch or
Yeah, well that they're in the code of the game. They're not available, but they were found when it was data mined. So
oh
like
I
these were
see. Okay.
planned, but like they're not in the game anywhere really.
So then what's the conspiracy theory that they weren't released for whatever reason?
I'm not sure
Is it punishment?
unless they're gonna
Try that
make
again.
Sun and Moon and X and Y somewhere mutually compatible and not just one direction compatible. And they might have the Zygarde form patched in, but like they didn't patch in the new megas in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire back to X and Y, so that seems unlikely.
I would think that it might even be a little bit like kind of like punishment for people who did data mine the game because I know that's been a big issue when Diamond and Pearl first got announced and Cerebi and other sites had already like essentially the entire data for the game like weeks before the Japan release came out and we were just kind of waiting for it to come out in the States. Maybe that's part of it too, but it seems really silly with a simultaneous release like Universal now.
Yeah. This like it's kind of I just remember around that time when all the Pokemon websites got like DCMA takedown warnings because
Yeah, I remember
they
that.
had the ripped sprites on the website. That was a whole thing.
Which is silly because like it's not like it's data that like you really can't get like freely like with a Google search. It's so funny. But on that note, what kind of stuff do you anticipate seeing before the games are actually out, if any?
I'm assuming that we're mostly just going to see new Pokemon in a few shots of the region like usual. Like I don't think they're going to get too big into the new features right away unless they have some kind of huge reveal like fairy type in there. Cuz like a lot of the good cool mechanic stuff came out later when the games were data mined. Like a lot of stuff like like toxic used by a poison type always hitting. Stuff like that was all found out later, and those are the cool mechanical changes. The stuff that I'm actually really interested in, and they never really announced that beforehand.
Yeah, a lot of the smaller stuff is always actually ends up being the more interesting type. I remember one probably like the least important reveal in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire for me was when uh, we found out that Mega Banette got Prankster, and I was like, "Whoa, Banette's really cool now. I totally want to use it all the time." And it ended up not actually mattering, but it's really funny to see like that kind of little small, like not quite gifts, but like little interesting quirks in the game that people freak out about, like expert belt Electivire and stuff like that. It's really fun.
Yeah, I like seeing those little kind of details. So like I'm not anticipating a huge amount of pre-release stuff that isn't just new Pokemon, which I guess we could get back to. New Pokemon.
Who else is down for the Rock Dog? Because that's my
I
boy
am
right there.
down for that Rock Dog. That Rock Dog is my best friend.
It's so great. Its little puppy face. I hope it doesn't go the way of Lillipup, but it's so
It
wonderful.
will.
I love dog.
I like that it got Vital Spirit, and then the koala got an ability that means it's immune to other status. It's immune to status except for sleep, but the way he's designed it just looks to imply that he's always asleep.
I wonder how that's gonna work with the evolution too, because that's something they've kind of tried to do with slaking and stuff like that. So that's I wonder if it's like gonna require sleep talk or sleep talk's gonna get ignored or maybe some weird new ability that has something to do with the condition. Because we've seen that before with Facade, Clefairy, and Magic Guard and stuff like that too.
Yeah, so we'll see where that takes us flavor wise, but otherwise they're both very, very cute.
Unarguable, honestly. I will argue about many things, but you cannot argue me off of cute dog.
Yeah, of course. And then we just, I guess we can backtrack a little bit and talk about the starters again, because we haven't done that on
Yeah.
the cast yet, even though we've talked
I
about it.
guess we haven't, have we?
Nope, that's all lost to time. So
We
Rowlet
lost so much
first.
good content. Oh man, Rowlet, the champ, the undisputed champ. I love him and his little ball face.
Did you see the pictures that were like it showed that the different Pokemon had like symbols on their faces that referred to like the classical elements?
I didn't know. That's
Yeah,
interesting. So like it's got
basically,
the Earth symbol, or
yeah, like Rowlet has the Earth symbol on it. So like this thing is definitely going to be burrowing, like 100%. It's going to be burrowing.
I damn it.
I
I
know
was
you don't want
secretly
that.
hoping for. I really don't. Ever since Torterra, I've been completely jaded on grass ground. But I, I would love something grass flying with something in the ability that negates it. And I know starters always get Blaze or Overgrowth or whatever type it commandeers for it. But I don't know. Grass ground feels like a cop out, especially for an owl. Even something like fairy or something like that would be interesting.
I mean, they did 3 firefightings in a row.
Yeah,
In a
I'm not saying
row.
I'm surprised, but at the same time, I'm a little bit disappointed. You know?
Litton could be either way on. Like it's I don't really care what happens to it because I'm not going to pick it.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. It's cute, but you know, it's not worth getting your panties in a bunch over.
And then
It's
Poplu, it's my
probably
child.
Poplu's great. I love Poplu. His little stupid seal face.
I just
Um,
want to see if they keep
I'm
it stupid or if they go more the way of like a sinister kind of clown.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last cut actually, of like a creepy jester kind of thing, and going water dark instead of, or water psychic instead of the, you know, the typical like Samurott or something like that, where it's just a plain water like fighter kind of thing.
Yeah, I hope it gets a second type. That's what I'm hoping.
Even
And there's a lot
Litten
of
I'd be okay with if it turned into something cool like Glameow and Pure Ugly did. Like if it turns into some fat overgrown thing, I'd be totally cool with picking Litten. But as it
yeah,
stands right
I
now,
want
I'm
it
not impressed by the.
I want it to kind of go to like Sabretooth way.
And you know
Like
what
just be
that would lead
huge
to?
and
That would
chunky.
lead to a very big, bulky cat, which would be a firefighting. So I'm gonna pretend you didn't say that.
No! No! How dare you? Don't ruin my
I'm
idea.
calling it like I see it.
God, no. And then, of course, we have to talk about the most important Pokemon.
Are we? You mean the girl trainer? No, we're actually talking about a Pokemon.
Yeah, the most important Pokemon, the Rotom Pokédex.
Oh yes, my handsome baby boy.
Do you think we'll be able to battle as it?
I'm hoping maybe not for a battle as it, but I'm hoping that you can play some type of like mini game for it, in like an homage to like like Nintendo never making phone games apart from Miitomo. Like it's like, yeah, we did make a mobile game. It's just on this Pokédex. You know?
Yes, ideal. What if you could just play Miitomo in the game?
That would be way too much for my fragile mind, honestly.
That'd blow my damn mind. And I like it's I like the idea of going to Rotom's Pokédex entry, just handsome Pokemon, cool type.
Yeah, it continuously changes its own Pokédex entry as you progress through the game.
Yeah, it
Rotom is
just
really
gets
cool.
more. Rotom is really cool and has lots of friends.
It's a little bit like unsure about itself, so it's like it's a little bit narcissistic, just like me.
Do you think they'll introduce more Rotom forms along with the Pokédex?
I kind of hope so. I know we did touch on that in the deleted podcast.
Yeah, I have my
Let me
two that
hold on a second.
I've been talking about written down. So one was a rototiller, a ground mover that would use earth power, and then the other was a garbage disposal that like Gunk Shot would be the better move for it, but Gunk Shot's physical, unless they could have different stat spreads, which would be super cool.
It would be interesting if they did like a second set of them and then had them have different
Like have a unique stat
base
spread.
stats rather.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd like that.
like have the fourth gen set on their own, and then having the seventh gen set have their own also. Um, that would be a little bit more interesting. Uh, I'm wondering almost what a because most of these are -2 special attack moves, so I'm wondering what a maybe like a dragon Rotom would look like. And I know we're getting into fake mon, but maybe
Well, I mean,
something
Hydro
like
Pump
that could make an
isn't, so
appearance too. Well, neither is Blizzard or Air Slash, but I mean, it's kind of in that same vein. It's very high risk, high reward kind of thing.
yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I guess isn't it just Overheat that does the -2? Because Leaf gets.
Leafs,
Oh no,
I
Leaf
thought Leaf
Storm does
Storm did
that.
it too.
Leaf Storm does do that. I just forgot what
Yeah,
that move was called.
yeah, because no one uses Mo Rotom, unfortunately, even though he's the best.
He's the best looking one. Objectively, that's the hot take.
That's 100% true. Wash
Uh,
Rotom is probably the best one, but he's the worst looking one of the bunch.
yeah, just so ugly.
Unbelievably so. Sorry, Rotom.
So I'll just instead of going over the main characters, let's just say the professor is hot and move on. Then we can move on to state of the meta.
Extremely hot, and I think that's really all we need to say about it, honestly, before I
Yeah.
get
So
uncomfortable.
let's get right into state of the meta. So I guess you should
Yeah,
lead off this section.
oh man, it's my section. All right. I have some qualms with the meta right now, and I'm wondering how familiar you are with it, apart from what we've talked about. Have you been watching any of the Italy or UK nationals at all?
I watched a little bit of them, yeah. Not too much. I just know that the primaries on the teams, it's almost always Mega Rayquaza, Primal, Groudon, and Kyogre and Xerneas, and almost every team has those four.
Well, yeah, essentially you can pick two out of the group of permitted legendaries, which is like it's Kyogre, Groudon, Rayquaza, Mewtwo. You know the quote unquote Ubers, as it were.
Yeah.
And a lot of the teams are, and obviously when you have a format like this, your team is going to be based on what two you pick. But for a long time in this meta, it just seemed like the same teams were the ones that were succeeding, and it rose to the quote unquote big six and everything like that. And even it's funny because Pokemon just released their May like regional like review, and they're not really saying it flat out, but they're pretty. It doesn't seem like they're really happy with the lack of combinations in the current meta. So I think reading between the lines a little bit, I think we're going to see a pretty drastic change in what happens after nationals, after the season rather. So
because like there were some really unique teams that you can get with some of the older metas that we've had for VGC, like most famously Sejun Park winning with his Pachirisu. And it's interesting to see them try to combat the different things that happen every year. So like one year you could go watch nationals and all you'd see is a Kangaskhan and a Garchomp against a Kangaskhan and a Garchomp. So you're trying to figure out how they can fix that to get rid of the complete overtake of megas. They tried throwing the legendaries in there, but now it's just people using the same legendaries because they made some legendaries objectively better than other ones. So I'm hoping
exactly. And
I'm hoping
ahead,
they throw a real wrench into it for next season. Try something really interesting.
Yeah, it's really frustrating because I can totally see where they're coming from as far as what they're trying to do. When you have a format like this, you're trying to draw new people into this. VGC is arguably it makes 10%, if that, of the money that the trading card game does, and so there's not a whole lot of at least monetary backing when it comes to this championship series, and they're trying to draw new people in, but there's not a whole lot of support for it because once you buy the game, you're pretty much done. And so there's not a lot of effort being put into it either. You're trying to draw new people in, and they're like, okay, cool, use legendaries, but they're not really thinking about how that affects the format, and I think that's the problem here. there's not really a way to solve it either, because when we went back to stuff like VGC 11, 12, where we're stuck with Innova or Kalos decks, it worked to a degree, but you still ended up seeing the same kind of thing. And even teams that were blatantly creative, like our Inanimates team with Bisharp, or Aaron Zhang's team back in 2014, I think it was. It's really tough to draw actually unique teams while still also allowing new players to come in. So that's the balance you have to kind of.
One thing that they've done for ratings battles before that I'd love to see them try in the VGC format is just one that bans the top Pokemon. So like all Pokemon that were used a certain amount in ratings battles, because they have all these statistics, they have their own usage statistics, just cut the top like 25 or 50 just right out and work with what's left.
Yeah, you're talking about the usage statistics for the ones most commonly used, the one they post on Global Link. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting idea. I don't know how really viable it is, because
well, I mean they've done it for
kind of
ratings battles like monthly tournaments before. I don't know how it would work for like the overall, but it's worth a try.
It would be
I'd like
interesting to see like a smaller version of that, like on a local level, like starting at regionals and then allowing the more quote unquote professional teams in the nationals and regionals tournaments, nationals and worlds tournaments, because that way you at least have I would say a more quote unquote diverse pool of players, as opposed to the ones you get where you just allow anything kind of deal.
Well, there's one thing that we were discussing on the previous version of this recording. And then a way to get new players in is to increase accessibility. So what are some ways that you think we'd be able to get that done in future games, perhaps in Sun and Moon? Because you can't make it too easy, or else there's no effort involved, right?
Yeah, I feel like that is really the question we come to as we move into Worlds, and we're stuck with this format for the rest of the year, obviously. But when it comes to next year, and we do have the new Pokemon, do we go like we did back in 11 and just only force people to use the new decks, or do we just let it open to everybody and have this same kind of problem again? So I think the only thing that you really can do to at least instill some sort of new blood into the franchise is you kind of have to gimp the metagame in just for the sake of having more people in it. So there's not really a good solution for this right now, unfortunately.
We kind of just have to watch and see what happens, just like they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we'll move on from State of the Meta just to one topic that was built within there last time, but I wanted to isolate on its own, and that is the dominance of fairy types.
Yes.
So we're like, just
yeah.
I want
so
to
fairies a very it's a brutal offensive type, and defensively there are so few things that can target it. We were talking about what were some ways in the new gen that they could essentially edit the type, or at least make it a little less viable is not a good word for it, but make it so that it's not such a powerhouse at the moment. One that we talked about earlier is by making fairies moves a little bit more widespread and having a bit more that other Pokemon have access to, while giving it either a third weakness or increasing also the number of poison and steel moves in the, I guess, armature of other Pokemon.
Because, well, the big thing is, like, no one is really stocking steel and poison moves on non-steel and poison Pokemon for anything other than fairies. Because, like, no one's saying, like, I'm using this poison move to deal with the abundance of grass types. No one's saying, I'm dealing with all these ice types up in the upper tiers with this steel move. Like, those are just incidental, right?
Right. Well, for one thing, it's because there's not a lot of moves in Poison and Steel that are actually viable. You have maybe Sludge Bomb, maybe Flash Cannon, but even those are they're one target moves for VGC, which is doubles,
Yeah,
and
well, there
that's
is
not
Sludge
really
Wave,
good.
but it's not very good. Well
Sludge Wave,
spread.
yeah, but it's not a good it's not a smart, like, even on Pokemon that can learn Sludge Wave, it's a better slot suited to something else, and that's part of the frustration.
Yeah, and yeah, Steel doesn't even have any
So,
spread moves as far as I can think of.
I don't think, I think Mirror Shot is one you brought up, but I don't think
Right,
that's a
right, one of
spread,
the
if I'm not
lower
mistaken.
power ones that aren't helpful.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. And
no
so
one's gonna
this it's
peep them
just,
on.
yeah, like no one cares about a 65 power move with 85% accuracy. It just doesn't matter. Um, and that's kind of the frustrating part, is there's not a clear baseline of, okay, this type should have this many spread moves, this many power moves, this many 120 -2 attack moves, you know. So
Yeah.
there's, I feel like with a little bit better distribution to each type, then it won't be as big of a problem. But right now, Fairy just shuts down anything that's not getting stabbed on a steel or a poison type move, which is really frustrating.
The big thing is, I don't think they should edit the type chart again, just because we're just getting used to this one. But it almost seems like they have to. Like I don't want them to, but it seems like that would be the best option. Is
It
either
seems
yeah,
like an option.
adding other things
I
that
would,
Poison and Steel could do, also like giving them another type to be good against, so that the moves are more worth stocking. Like, what do you think that Poison could be super effective against that it isn't now?
water is one that
Water
springs
is
to
one.
mind.
I always
Uh,
thought fighting would be good.
ground for fighting. I mean, you could even have a relationship with poison and ground, like Ghost and Ghost have right now, because technically poison does get into the ground. But
That's true. But would
here's a
it
hot
affect the
take,
ground,
and I
right?
know we, yeah, well, I mean, it would
Hot
soak
take.
into it, and
Yeah, yeah.
hot
Hot
take.
take,
Here we
hot
go.
take.
Uh, what if we completely reset the type and just had 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses for each type? Because that would be something that could affect it. It would be much more of a Fire Emblem type scenario, but at the same time, you would eliminate a lot of the issues that come with defensive and offensive typing that are unsatisfactory right now.
Let's talk about a big one. What would be the 2 things that fighting and ground would lose effectiveness against? Because those both have 5 as it stands.
That it would lose effectiveness against? Oh, you're
Yeah,
talking about it's strong against 5. Okay.
yeah.
Um, hmm.
I think steel for fighting.
Steel does make sense. I would say, I think normal, maybe.
Well, I mean that's all
Because
it's good
ice makes
against now, right?
sense.
I feel like
Fighting?
fist.
Fighting's good against
Yeah, no, but I just mean like I feel like fist
fight.
breaking rock, fist breaking ice. That makes more sense than fist breaking steel. It feels like they just set that natural limit for it. I understand
Yeah,
why.
it's just curious because a lot of the normal types now, it doesn't really make sense why a fighting Pokemon would be good against it. Like
Yeah, I
the
suppose.
the the flavor they're going in that direction, it doesn't feel right to me punching a dog. It doesn't feel good in my bones.
And then
But
yeah,
I
fighting versus dark is kind of a flavor thing, more based on like hero and evil culture. That's a whole thing. Same
yeah.
with bugs. Same with bugs against dark, because bugs are associated with superheroes. That's a real
Are
thing.
they really? Is that what that came from?
That is what that came from. I was reading into that kind of stuff on someone's blog, probably Bog Leech, who's like really big in the just general monster community. And always read his stuff about Pokemon because it's really insightful. Because he's one of those
Interesting.
people
I had
who,
not even thought about that. That's interesting. What's like an example of that? Because I've
well,
never
just
heard that
it's
before.
specifically in Japan. There's a lot of like old pulpy superheroes that have like bug-like designs or bug helmets. And Christ, I'm thinking like it's stuff like proto Power Rangers stuff almost. I have a picture in my head,
Oh,
but I
I
don't know what
guess
it's
no,
called.
that does make sense. Like Kamen Rider and stuff like that is
Yeah.
very bug themed. That's interesting. I'd never thought of that before.
So that's the
Oh,
only thing about
interesting.
restricting it 3 to 3 is that you'd probably have to go with the more logical ones and lose some of the more flavor ones, which is kind of a shame.
Yeah, that's true.
But really, if we're gonna
Maybe
if
that's not,
they
yeah.
if they wanted to do edits to the type chart, then they need to throw ice a bone. I don't know why they didn't do that last gen. Ice needs another resistance. It really, really does.
Yeah, it's hurting for one right now. I think the steel week in Gen 2 really killed it.
Yeah, but like
Even resisting something like resisting
ice resisting
poison
all.
might be a bet.
What if ice resisted all water moves that aren't Scald and Steam Eruption? Like those ones
Does
would
that
be
not
an
happen right
exception.
now? I feel like it. No, because
No,
water
ice
resists
ice
water. Is that it?
yeah, ice is just neutral to water.
That's interesting.
If it resisted it and
Yeah,
was
that would
neutral
be
to
a good
those
one.
ones, or even just weak to those ones, like freeze dry does in reverse, right? Where it's just
Yeah, yeah.
like moves with specific like in type interactions are really fun, and I think they should do more with them because that's a way to get around the type chart. Is just giving things more tools.
Making it overly complicated though is the other issue with that. Having move specific effects is one thing, but even you run into issues when you have moves with hidden, I guess, effects is a good word. When we had the explosion nerf, it wasn't really a nerf. It was just they stopped doing that hidden thing that wasn't really supposed to happen, kind of deal.
Yeah.
Um, and so I guess clarification is good when you're doing stuff like that.
Well, yeah,
But
as long
I
as it
have no
can
problems with the intent.
as long as it can fit in the basic move description in the game's flavor text. Otherwise, then that's when you get into it being too complicated. Because as long as the move is telling you what it's doing, there's no problem.
Yeah. On that note, Pokemon, if you're listening to this, fix curses flavor text because no one needs to like have that spooky question mark type and have children confused because it's
Well,
ridiculous.
no, they changed it. It's Ghost type as a Gen 6.
Hot take. No, it's still question mark, isn't it?
100%. 100% it's Ghost now. They finally fixed that.
Prior to Generation 5, it was okay. Yeah, you're 100% right. Damn.
Yeah, this
Ignore
also
my
they
take.
also
Damn.
fixed things
Damn.
like feint attack having the wrong version of the word feint because they'd
Oh, thank God. That was annoying so much. Oh man.
and also since they gave more space to things like items like never melt ice didn't have to be one word. They made a lot of good just engine changes in 6th gen that allowed for a lot of good fixes.
Yeah, they did. Very true. I want to see more. Speak while we're on this subject. I want to see more moves like Forest Curse and like Trick or Treat, where it just
Adds a type.
it adds a type. Yeah, it doesn't even have to like replace a type, but it just needs to add a type, which would
That's
be
my favorite
that was
thing is that it
so
could make
fascinating.
something that is already 4 times weak to something become 8 times weak to something. Like in theory, I don't think there's anything it could apply
Yeah,
to
yeah,
with the current available Pokemon. But like that's a thing that can happen. Actually, yeah, it can because
yeah,
you can
definitely.
add Grass type to a Forretress or a Scizor and make it 8 times weak to fire.
Yeah, 8 times weak to fire. Yeah, that's funny.
It's just stupid.
Oh man, I love that.
And then I don't know. While we're on the subject of small types, let's just. I wanted to bring up one of your hot takes. Well, I guess this is kind of like a warmed over medium take. It's a regular
All of
take.
my takes are hot takes. Please don't do this to me, okay? All of my takes are hot takes.
That
Don't.
hidden power should go
This
back up
slander. This
to
is slander.
70. Hidden power going back up to 70 power.
Yes, the fact that hidden power is not 70 is bullshit. And I hate it so much. There was no reason for it to drop to 60. Even if they were going to like adjust the like variability of the strength of IV affecting the power of the move, it's still BS that it's not just a flat 70 then. There's no
They should
reason
have
for
just
it to
kept
be
it at
60
70.
apart from. Yeah, they just kept it at 70 because now you have stuff like Cresselia and Galvantula. Like it's really useful to have those moves in that set, and I just I don't really see the reason to like drop it. It's kind of silly, honestly.
How many of your in-game Pokemon do you have hidden powers on?
Um, my Galvantula for sure has one, and I think I reset my Cresselia so it would have fire. Um, I mean,
Because it's
right
not
now
like
I don't have it on like I'm not using it on very many just because there's no point in having it because it's dropped so bad.
yeah, it's so hard to get Like it's really hard to get the right one. At least it's slightly easier, but I do wish that they had settled on 70 instead of 60.
Yeah, it is. It's really weird how they haven't made it very clear in game to someone who doesn't know how it works that like the IV set you have is how the typing is determined. But I mean that's just one thing they're not making very clear, and I actually think that brings us to our next point.
Generally making things more clear for people who aren't like min-maxing all their Pokemon all the time.
Yeah, it's really strange for something especially in the tournament scene for a company that doesn't it seems to want more people involved in it, and I consistently believe that that's true. There's not a whole lot of in-game help when it comes to making stuff that is making a Pokemon more competitively viable, accessible to a casual user,
Yeah, the
because
big way
it
the big
just
way I put it
seems.
is that if I, with my like immaculately made Pokemon but very little technical battling skill, were to go to a tournament where there's a lot of people who are really good at battling and got really used to just the various ins and outs of the strategy, I would probably be able to beat them just by having the better IV'd EV'd Pokemon. And that's kind of shitty, really.
And it's exactly what happens too, because what happens in tournaments is and I realize it's not a lot of the people who are there, and it's fine. It happens in every tournament. You have some kids who just they go because they like playing the game, which is great, but then they get wiped by these teams who they're SRing for 31 all legendaries and all this other garbage, and then you have these kids who are just like, I like my Greninja and I like the Groudon that I caught, so I'm going to use them on the same team. And I get that they're going there for the fun, but at some point they just got to get super frustrated, and it's got to turn them off going to one of these events.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, even like that, when you look at the top players in the like juniors division, like all of those kids are on the various competitive Pokemon communities, which is not going to be true of most of the kids at that age level. And then you get the ones that are like literally just the younger siblings of people playing in Masters, which
Yeah,
means they're going
exactly.
to
And even the
dominate.
kids who win, yeah, even the kids who win in juniors and seniors, like Aaron Zhang's brother Brandon Babytron, he won his juniors, and he didn't know anything about the game. He just used the teams that his brother like gave him, and he was like, "Yeah, you just need to Swords Dance substitute, and then you're good to go." And most kids don't get that; they just go in there whatever, but they still can't win these tournaments without some level of competitive knowledge, and it just seems silly to not have that available to people who want it. And it's cool if you want to do just in game. I totally respect that because it's a damn kids game. Like that's what it's for. But to the people who want to get better at it, if you have this entire hidden aspect of the game, it should be available to everyone.
Yeah, they should make it more clear in all areas, and I think they've been trying to do it every generation. Like stuff like Destiny not making it easier to
Absolutely.
breed. Even then, though, like if you don't have a six perfect IV Ditto, then Destiny not is not as useful.
Yeah, exactly. Like
And most
there's
people who
just
have
some
one
items in there that you're just
is
like, I don't know what this is.
yeah, and most people who have six IV Dittos got them from someone who hacked it into the game. So even then, like
Or
no matter how
something
many
like that.
tools they
Yeah.
make, no matter how many tools they make, there's always people who are going to be above them.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It's just frustrating. There should be a lot more transparency when it comes.
Yeah. Let's move on. I just wanted to do a quick detour into the horrible microtransaction land of Pokemon Shuffle.
Oh, this is all you, because as we've talked about before, I don't know anything about Pokemon Shuffle. I know the little heads are really cute. That's my hot take on Pokemon.
Just generally keep it that way. I just wanted to talk briefly about the current Great Challenge running in the game right now. It's Kingdra's level, and the way that this level works is there's a spiral pattern of blocks at the start of the level that auto resets every 5 or 6 turns. So what you need to do is you need to bring Pokemon with you that can delay the disruptions. using Disruption Delay isn't going to work too well for you. So what I brought was Vileplume, who has Mind Zap, which resets the Disruption counter back to the maximum. And then also Shaman, whose Sleep Charm keeps it from doing its Disruption for 3 turns. Those two, another super effective grass type. Any of them is fine. And Mega Sceptile, if you have it, would be the perfect person to lead the team. But otherwise, probably just go with Mega Gengar, because then you can just rack up the combos later on. That's all I got on Pokemon Shuffle. We can move on now.
That sounds so complicated for a
It's
free game.
so evil and complicated at all times. So we're moving on to our last segment now. So our last segment
What is it, Matt? Lay it on me.
It's the Pokemon General Election that ran in Japan. So this is
I was voted president.
This is a poll where a bunch of Pokemon fans in Japan were able to rate what their favorite Pokemon were, generally for the hope of a distribution along with the upcoming movie, which is the Volcanion and Magiarna movie. So this
Volcanion is a funny word.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Volcanion was not part of the poll. He's 721. So he's just not
like number 721, like in the poll, or
no, in the Pokédex. Like he's not featured because this is just the 720.
I see.
Yeah. So out of the top like 12, there's a couple of them that are clearly just there because people wanted a distribution for them. So that's Arceus, Mew, Genesect, Rayquaza, Zygarde, who's garbage, Meloetta, Mewtwo, Jirachi's at 13. Deancy's at 16, Darkrai's at 14. Like these are all legendaries that are clearly just here because people wanted distributions of them.
Yeah, I honestly have a really hard time believing that people enjoy Meloetta enough to put her at number 4 without having some sort of ulterior motive in mind. Because honestly, if you think a Pokemon is cute, you're thinking Gardevoir. You're not thinking Meloetta. You're thinking, get out of here, Meloetta. I'm sick.
Yeah, exactly. So number 100, which is the lowest that the website I'm looking at goes, is Mudkip. So he ranked up there. Swampert was actually a couple positions higher. The absolute top of the poll was Greninja, but that was kind of a surprise, honestly. I'm patting my Greninja amiibo on the head. My friend, my son.
Good old Greninja.
Interestingly,
I don't know. Greninja is weird. That's such a strange pick to me. I still don't really understand that. Like, why Greninja? Like, out of all the other beloved starters, even Greninja is the most popular one.
It apparently struck a chord in Japan because this is a Japanese-only poll. Maybe it's just the ninja theme.
It's possible. It's interesting. I never really thought of Greninja being super popular, but I guess it is.
Pikachu is only at number 4, and
which is strange.
Both of our chosen avatars for this show, that being Vaporeon and Trubbish, did not rank in the top 100.
Which means it's a bullshit poll.
Flareon, who has no moves, ranked above Vaporeon.
Here's a quiz. Name one Flareon move.
I can't. It doesn't have
any. I bet
it
doesn't have it.
I mean, they finally gave it Flare Blitz. They gave it Flare Blitz this gen, but it's still bad.
Good. I hope it is powerful enough to kill itself because I'm so sick.
There we go. So yeah, that's it for our basic
hot take.
Yeah, that's all it for our hot take. So we're into the end of the show now. We're moving on to the questions that we received.
This is my favorite part of the show.
Our absolute first question.
Favorite.
The first question we ever received for this show is from Twitter user Brooks as a Noun, also known as Brooks Oglesby, also known as the host of Post Game of Thrones, a podcast where I asked him a question about Air Buddies, and he sent me this question as revenge. What if Primeape
I would like to quickly say, I have never seen Post Game of Thrones, but I highly recommend you watch it or listen to it because the only thing I know about it are the episode summaries, which are hysterical. And I just want to say on the air, for the record, John Aaron, Cum Fiend is the best episode summary I could ever give. That's so great.
Oh my god.
Please continue, Matt.
All the jokes in those episode summaries that they post are the ones that are directly from like they're jokes that were said in the podcast. Like they're both really, really funny guys. On that note, the question for our podcast is, what if Primeape cranked his hog?
And it's a really technical question because when you think about it, when a boxer has to like have his hands taped into his gloves, and so rest in peace, Muhammad Ali. I don't really think there's any way for you to get your hog into a boxing glove. Like it's supposed to be folded closed, right?
Yes,
So he's got to have a really thin dick.
a
Is my
thin,
is my
flat
thinking
hog.
here?
Yeah, and then also like you're thinking,
Yeah.
look at him. His arms aren't like super long, and his hog's got to be on his underside. So he's got to like reach between his legs to get it, and his legs are really close together. So like, I think there's just a bunch of
Well,
technical issues that prevent hog cranking at like maximum capacity and efficiency.
there is one scenario we haven't talked about, and that is what if he's only got one leg?
Oh shit, the other one's just his hog.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, the
that
other one's
would
just the hog. So
is that why he's so mad all the time? Because his hog's constantly scraping against
I
the
think
floor.
that must be it.
That's got to
Yeah,
be
he's
it.
got to walk on his hog. That's got wow, that's genius. We've solved the mystery.
Moving on, is Mew a fucking cat?
Uh, can't confirm. What do you got?
Mew has some kind of relation to other Pokemon. It's an ancient Pokemon, so it's got to have some kind of like lineage. And looking into mammals in nature, a lot of things are cat-like. Cat-like features are really strong evolutionary features. So I'm thinking Mew is definitely some kind of cat.
I'm thinking Mew is probably not a cat because I thought that, and I still haven't gotten confirmation about this, but I think that Mew was only the, it was just like the first Pokemon. It was, or not really the first, but like it was one of the first, and Mewtwo was the one that was born from it. So I don't think that. I mean, it's kind of uh like multi-celled animals and single-celled animals, like they split along two different paths, so it's possible that it's cats are just regular animals and Mew is Mew. So I don't think it's a cat.
Okay. Um, the one thing that always led me into the common ancestor theory of Mew, I don't know if it was from like the anime or something, but the big hint for me was the fact that it and Ditto have the same shiny colors, and then Dittos are in the original games found almost entirely within the mansion that Mew was like all raised in. So like that was like the first
So you're
attempt to
thinking
clone
that
Mew was Ditto, and then
uh
Mewtwo was the second try.
see, this is like the third time you've told me this, and I still think it's interesting, and I've never heard it before, even though
Yeah,
this is the third
all I,
time
all I
you've
do is
told me.
read Pokemon theories,
So
man.
yeah, that's probably a healthy use of your time. Third question was is this the last question? I don't even
Yeah,
know.
it's the last
The
question.
third question was oh, okay, cool. The third one is from my good buddy Bojack, who is the artist formerly known as Doom Mullet. Uh, is a all electric competitive team viable?
This is a
And
question that really
what do you
benefits from
think, Matt?
us. This is a question that really benefits from us having already talked about it, because now we don't need to like work through every single angle of it.
It's true. It's very true. It's like I
So
already
the
know the answer to the test.
yeah, well, I mean, the general idea is you need to have a couple of electric types that are not grounded, or else you're going to get completely battled by ground types the whole time.
Yeah,
So,
so Electros is probably a good move.
yeah,
I'm
Zapdos was another
thinking
option.
Zapdos, yeah. Uh, Magnet Rise Magnezone, maybe, um, was another one I thought of after that podcast ended.
Yeah,
Uh, and what was the other ones we were doing?
I think we were just starting to go with like general attacking ones from there. Like we didn't stick too much. Although we did put a Rotom form. I think that was the other Levitator. I don't think we ever settled.
That was the other one.
I don't think we settled on which one we wanted to use.
Yeah.
But I
I'm
think,
thinking probably Fire is your best bet.
yeah, because that gives you coverage
Just
you're not going to
because you
get
don't.
otherwise.
Yeah, it's a good answer to steals because there's not a whole lot of like anti-steal stuff you can get on with an electric Pokemon. So you can also do some crazy shit with Electivire, if you're a masochist. So there's that.
Well, what we were saying is Electivire could be viable if you had a good Tailwind support for it.
Oh yeah, and we had Zapdos with Tailwind setting
Yeah.
it up initially. Yeah. Great idea, you. Even though I'm not sure which one of us came up
That
with
was
that.
your idea, yes.
Yeah, I know. That's why I took credit for it.
So, all in all, Mono Electric, potentially viable as long as you are off the ground and moving fast.
And not playing against a good team.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's all. That's all we got for the week.
I think so, yeah.
Give us some feedback. We are on Twitter. I am at MattGCN.
I am at Queen Parasite.
And yeah, send us questions, send us feedback about how the podcast went. On my editing, once I'm done doing it, tell me how it went. How we could beef
Let me know
up
how
some
much you hate my
segments.
voice.
Have us beef up some segments, beef down some other segments, beef sideways a segment that is a good length. Who knows?
I'm uncomfortable with this language so close to cranking hog.
You just gotta crank the beef. Crank the beef.
God.
And that is where we're gonna end for the week. See you all whenever next time is.
Thanks for listening.